In this episode, we speak with Taylor Matthews, co-founder and CEO of Farther, a wealth management firm that combines experienced advisors with advanced technology to deliver a more comprehensive service for high net worth clients. Farther has grown quickly, now managing over $5 billion in assets through more than 100 advisors serving thousands of clients nationwide. Taylor co-founded Farther in 2019 after helping scale fintech retirement advisory firm ForUsAll for $25 million to nearly $1 billion in assets. Earlier in his career, he co-founded Essmart, a social enterprise in India, and worked in investment banking and management consulting. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Taylor, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
It's a delight to be here.
Interestingly, wealth tech, it's kind of a crowded space, but you guys are doing something super interesting. You have a platform catered to the higher end, and you have a few different go-to-markets straight to the financial advisor, to the client, to the institutions. It kind of struck me that there were some similarities, and maybe you could say I'm off on this, but I thought it was like similar to Compass on the real estate side, how Compass kind of approached the market where they were first a tech solution, and then they found that they could start acquiring real estate agencies. I'm not sure if you're anywhere close to that strategy or thinking about it, but maybe to kick off, tell us about where Farther sits today in the context of its, I guess, three primary go-to-markets.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just start by characterizing what we do. And I do think that there are some similarities to a Compass or something like that. So fundamentally, we provide technology to financial advisors, many of whom are employed by us or otherwise affiliated with us, and their clients. And the goal of all of that technology is to help advisors do their jobs a little bit more efficiently, to show up a little bit more wholly to their clients, and to offer a very broad solution to their clients. And from a client perspective, they get the benefit of all of that and some unique things that come with being on the Farther platform. The idea there is that we saw originally that there was a lot of frustration amongst the advisor community in all of the aspects of their job that they have to do that is not directly adding value to client relationships. Things like operations and administrative work and trading and rebalancing and managing teams and tech stacks and performing all the roles of being a business owner that, again, are maybe not the highest and best use of their time. And we thought that if we could pull all of that work in, deliver that for them, deliver a great client experience as part of it, and make the economics work, it's pretty important too, then we had a really nice value prop that stood out from what other companies were making available. And that was our wedge into the market. And for the most part, we grow by recruiting advisors to the team. They bring their client relationships with them and join Farther in hopes that they can grow a little bit faster, deliver a little bit more, and provide that better experience that they're really seeking.
And are financial advisors swapping out a different software to use yours, or are they just adding on the Farther platform to what they already have?
Generally, it's a swapping out. So if you kind of think about how an advisor builds their practice, you have a couple options. You can join a large firm, some of whom have their own proprietary systems. Most of the big banks, for instance. Or you can join an independent firm or start your own. And there's a lot of really great companies that build point solutions. And you kind of mix and match a lot of these point solutions together. The challenge with that is you have to kind of know which ones you really need, and then you hope that they integrate well together. And that isn't always the case. So we built something that we think is a little bit different. We provide a lot of flexibility while also trying to bring everything together in one place. So to us, we kind of like to say we're the iOS to the industry's Android operating system, where it is mostly Farther, but it all works really well together.
I imagine it must take some time to transition a financial advisor or a practice over because it's like they've been using it for years, they're used to it, they trust it. And then here you come along and say, well, really, we can do everything for you and it's going to be better, it's going to be smoother. But yet they're like, well, listen, all my clients' information is on these legacy systems. Has it been that case where you have to like kind of, it takes a year, it takes 18 months, 2 years to transition someone over?
One of the biggest hurdles that we faced, especially as we got going, was the friction that was created in that transition. And so we've invested an awful lot in finding ways to reduce that friction. We're still finding them. But the net result of it is kind of depending on where you're coming from and the exact, way that you end up bringing your client relationships over. Usually transitions last somewhere between 1 and 3 months. That's pretty much the norm. The only times where it goes longer than that are usually where we have some challenge with the exiting institution.
Uh-huh. And your market is on the higher end from what I've gathered. By that nature, are there like more types of assets that you have to think through? Like if they have more alternative asset exposure, and it sounds like your platform is comprehensive enough that it can handle all of these various asset types.
You nailed it. There are some different challenges that are important for an ultra high net worth family that, are maybe not there for, somebody who's more on the affluent side, but they're exactly what you said. Can we handle all of the alternative assets and both the direct investments as well as, any fund relationships through asset managers that we work with, whether that's private equity, private credit, whatever it happens to be? Can we handle all of the other SMA providers, so separately managed account providers that a family might be working with? Together on both of those ends, we spent a lot of time building relationships with asset managers and developing a nice process for if there is a net new relationship, what is that? How do we contract with them? And how do we smooth out that process really quickly? We handle all of that ahead of when an advisor joins the platform. And so, from a client perspective, it's pretty smooth, even if like the, preceding couple of weeks are, negotiations with the asset manager or whatever it happens to be.
And what's the bar for ultra high net worth?
We usually used about 25 million as kind of like the ultra high net worth bar, high net worth being somewhere in the 5 to 25 and affluent being under that.
Mm-hmm. I guess heading into one aspect, private markets has become very top of mind for everyone, given that it seems that the number of public companies has somewhat plateaued and a lot of the growth in the broader capital markets is happening in the private markets, in particular private credit. Have you seen more inquiry among your clients or prospective clients of maybe how they can tap more into technology to facilitate either their activity or monitoring or reporting within the private markets?
I would say it's not only that the public market, like sheer number of companies investable there is plateaued, it's actually declined quite a lot. So the net effect of that is if you want exposure to, the broader economy, then you probably do want exposure to private markets. And you can access that and, from a private equity perspective, private credit, infrastructure, real estate, you name it. Like all of those are important, especially the larger portfolios that can handle less liquid assets. The perennial challenge with all of that is like, how do you actually bring all of these assets into one reporting environment where you can see everything all in one place and presumably can update that on a regular basis so that you have a pretty good sense of where you happen to be every time you get one of those quarterly reports or an updated 409A if it's a private investment or something like that. So we started with that premise that we needed to be able to handle the vast array of private market activity that goes on, report again, all in one place, all where it just kind of comes together and works. And I would extend that even further. Wealth is about more than just the asset management component. It's very important to see the asset side of the balance sheet. It's also important to understand what the liability side of the balance sheet is and have access to, all of the lending solutions that you might need to finance an aircraft. Like you should be able to do that. If you want a jumbo mortgage, we should be able to do that. So over our history, we've built quite a lot of both technology to visualize all that and make sure that we can see it all in one place. Also, a lot of partnerships that allow us access to those types of products that extend beyond just the asset management, investment management relationship. And then, even further, there's also the other side where there's lots of documents that end up being important. So being able to pull all of that information together, whether that's trust and estate planning or something like an insurance policy or even, tax returns and things like that. If we can pull all of those in one place and have that one common, repository for everything that you might need to touch on in your personal financial life, like that's just a better experience. So that's what we've focused on from the very beginning and what we want to deliver to clients.
Curious if you actually do provide access to private equity opportunities, and in what form do you provide access to investments in private equity firms or direct? Yeah, provide access to direct investing in private companies? Like, to what extent is there access?
The answer is yes on all of those fronts. So the way that we do that is there's kind of like three tiers of it. Tier one would be we have access to lots of platforms that are there to make opportunities in the largest managers available to financial advisors and their clients. So we have access to just about every one of those that you can name. Then second step is we also develop our own direct relationships with managers. And that might mean, very established managers who have been around that, everybody knows their name. It also means that, we seek out opportunities to provide access to emerging managers that might be unique. Or to give an example, we recently hosted Commonweal, and they're a early stage, top decile, seed stage manager. They're raising their second fund. We had a unique access point to that, and we offer that to all of the clients on our platform and the advisors, to them. That's something a little bit unique that we can bring to the table that maybe other firms can't. And then the last bit would be direct investments into some of the private companies that you might want access to. And with that, so a lot of different ways that you can tackle that, but we do make that available as well.
Do you kind of qualify the companies that you would provide access to? Meaning like there's, a rating system internally that you're like, okay, we can only provide this set of companies because we vetted them to a certain degree. Obviously, you can't always fully vet, so that your financial advisor knows like, okay, these are okay for us to actually like seriously consider for our clients.
Absolutely. We don't want to just make anything available. And, it's one of those points of tension where the goal is to provide access to quite an array of opportunities. And the flip side of that is, we care very deeply about our reputation, the trust that we have built with clients and the advisor team. So we have our own set of researchers who are looking at those companies, evaluating those opportunities when they come up. And, we have kind of our own set of metrics, and we also look at who else has vetted those companies as well as part of that process. And the combination, I think, is reasonably robust.
You have an interesting background in that you were in consulting, I believe that with Deloitte for a number of years, and then you switched over to helping to scale a tech company, and you were successful at it. Did you find that transition fairly intuitive from consultant to operator?
It's not the normal path, is it? So maybe like just going back a little bit further, I started my career as an analyst in an investment bank, and that bank collapsed in the financial crisis. I moved to Fidelity as a strategy consultant there. It's like, this was just a great opportunity that opened up and provided a lot of just early access from a career perspective to me to like a very broad array of, everything that they offered. And I went to business school. I started a company there. I moved to India to get it off the ground. And it wasn't a place that I was going to end up living for, a longer period of time. So it was just really fortuitous that I was able to get that company going. And I used consulting as a stepping stone back to the United States, so that I could, figure out what was next. I very much enjoyed my time at Deloitte. The partner path was not one that I was really excited about going on for the long term. And I think if you had talked to anybody there, they would probably note that I spent a lot of time thinking about what I was going to do next from an entrepreneurial perspective, or finding an opportunity to participate in that fintech ecosystem rather than the projects that I was working on, which might have been career limiting there too.
So you transitioned, and was it fairly easy? Because the premise of my question is that when you're a consultant, you get used to consulting, right? You get used to giving advice, not necessarily rolling up your sleeves and kind of diving in. But I guess it was what you're saying is maybe it was your experience having founded a company in India.
What I would say is that, like, one of the most frustrating aspects of consulting to me was that, like, you get to the point where you have done a lot of really great work, some like, phenomenal analysis, and you think you have something, and then you hand it off. and it's not yours anymore. And that's super frustrating. Like for somebody who is like much more of a doer, like you really want to like, keep your hands in and like push it forward and bring it to fruition. And, often that just isn't what happens. So I would say I was not a very good fit for consulting in the long run. And I was very excited to be much more of a doer in pretty much the opposite environment. I think I was employee number 10 or so at ForUsAll, where I exited to.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a co-founder at Farther, and you seem to have a very good dynamic, and you guys have done a great job building the company to date. How do you think you were able to kind of really cultivate a good partnership? And then also talk a little bit about culture.
Well, so funny enough, like Brad's background is so wildly different from mine. His is West Point guy, goes to drive tanks around in Iraq for a couple of years, comes back to the States. We crossed paths at business school. And, while I got my MBA and had a really good time, he also got his master's in engineering at MIT at the same time. And what do you do with all that? Well, you go become a wealth manager, I guess. So he has this really wide-ranging experience as a background, and we saw opportunities to take some of the things that he had been working on kind of for his own wealth management business at Goldman, and ultimately like carrying some of that forward to technology he was building for other advisors there. We saw some opportunity to take the ideas behind that growth-oriented approach and pair them with the efficiency-related ideas that I was tackling. And when we began talking, we just noticed that we saw the world the same way. We saw a lot of opportunity. We saw, we were frustrated at the same things. And we thought that there might be a chance that we could build a wealth management firm on modern technology rails the right way. And that was very counterintuitive because almost all wealth management firms are created with the lift and shift of clients and like protecting the revenue. And that makes it really challenging to build net new software. But when you start from scratch and give yourself the space to create something that ultimately is for clients, but without like the demands of running a business alongside of it, I think that opened up a different opportunity for us that other people maybe didn't have. And so as we split duties, figured out like how we were going to tackle this problem together, it's very obvious. He was the more technical side of it. So he generally, in the early days at least, handled product engineering design, and I got all the rest. And over time, I think that's shifted a little bit, but, having a lot of trust in each other to do a really great job on our respective domains, just allowed us to move a whole lot faster than we otherwise, might have. And I think that carries through to this day. When we think about the culture that we've developed, one of the central tenets that we have is like communication is really important. We were born in the pandemic. We were born remote. And that means that being candid, being forthright is that much more important with us than it is for a firm that, where you are just right next to each other all the time. You kind of like learn all the nuances of how you speak to each other. But communication is core to all of that, and one aspect of our firm that we've kind of carried forward from the very beginning.
And so with the kind of cultivating the culture you want at your company, is everyone remote?
No, now at this point, we have 3 primary offices. There's San Francisco, New York, and Dallas. And then we do have, especially our financial advisors are in 35 or more different states at this point. I can't remember the exact number.
Okay, got it. You figured out a way to communicate consistently with each other to ensure that you're moving the culture along in the way you want.
That's right. We spend a lot of time talking about the cultural values that we hold dear. So that's communication, action, respect, and excellence. And, it's easy to say these are important things to us, but they're reflected in pretty much everything we do, from performance reviews to the awards that we give to the team to how we share with each other, like the really important things that we're doing for our clients, our advisor team. All of that is geared towards those core tenets. And, there's some other special aspects, our culture that, we brought over from the military and maybe, some from the startup community, but together it's really helped us develop a cohesion, even when working remotely and across different offices.
I know we're over time. Do you still have a couple of minutes? I have 2 quick questions.
Sure, I can go a little longer.
Okay, awesome. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
Oh, wow. All right. I think what immediately jumped to mind was my coach. So I ran track in high school and college, but my high school track coach was one of those really unique characters. It's like, if you can imagine, this guy's, when I was in high school, he was 65 or so, retiring, very much a curmudgeon, but the type of person that you really didn't want to disappoint. And a number of different, aspects of that relationship have just been like very meaningful. But like, the insistence on grit, the insistence on show, don't tell, I think is very much influenced me throughout my life. And, certainly are characteristics that I try to bring to the team here.
Awesome. Sorry, did you say distance runner?
Yes, I was.
What distance?
I was primarily a mid-distance runner. So 800 meters, 1,000 was my like core events. But in high school, I ran everything from the 400 to the 5K.
Awesome. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity cause or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
So I'm a philosophy major. That was what I did in college. And, one of the things that I found really interesting about, that approach is trying to figure out like, how can you do the most good in your world with a given dollar? There's a couple organizations that spend a lot of time and research energy on trying to figure that out. One of those organizations is the Poverty Action Lab at MIT. So knowing how you can turn a dollar into like, the most profound impact, I think is incredibly important. So the work they do is great. And then like the outcome of that work is, well, there's a couple things that seem to be really valuable per dollar. And the Against Malaria Foundation is one of those primary causes that I've been supporting for a while. So, look into that or any of the research that they put out. It's probably something different at this point. But last time I checked, that was still high on the list.
Taylor, thank you again for taking the time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, RJ.